Hello, welcome to my channel. Let's get rambling. Today I want to ramble about politics. Donald Trump has just been elected yesterday, so I'm on topic. Although I actually want to discuss local politics. Local politics in a small town, much like this one, in terms of size at least. Not so much in terms of appearance, shall we say. It's a small town in northern Italy, like this one actually, but less well kept, much more problematic, which I suppose makes it more interesting too, politically speaking, because because it needs fixing. There's a number of issues that need attention, that as an elected politician you need to solve. And so I was involved in local politics there, and I was elected as a city councillor in a group, a list, an independent list, with people coming from all walks of life and with differing political leanings. Some of them were more right-wing, others leaned to the left. But anyway, it was an independent list which wasn't supported by any political party, it wasn't representing any of them. Unlike our opponents, who were very much supported by actual parties on the right, or indeed on the far right, because there's no real such thing as a moderate, modern, liberal right in Italy, unfortunately. Yeah, this town definitely looks better than the one I come from. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about, people who glorify the fascist past of Italy, who will very freely so quote Benito Mussolini, no problem at all. People, the nastiest ones, will even go as far as posting satirical images of migrants crossing the Mediterranean to looking for, a free ride, free vacation, all inclusive. They would post that on the day that 400 of them, 400 migrants, died drowning in the Mediterranean. Okay, so maybe not the best moment to make that sort of humor, but that's how they are, and in doing so, by the way, they reflect very much the local mentality, I have to say, the local culture. Anyway, they lost to us. Hey. And we got elected against all odds. And check out this little alley with a church there. We won against all odds, and I won. I got elected against even bigger odds, because I was a complete outsider in that election. I had just arrived from China, of all places, and I was a total stranger in that town and in that community, where people will traditionally vote, as they do in small towns, but even more so in that one. They will vote for the people they know on a personal basis. Best case scenario, they vote for people who have indeed been busy in the local community. But a lot of votes go to those they know on a personal basis, maybe, actually, surely so, in some cases, with the hope of getting some favor in return once their man is elected, you know, their man or their woman. And you can see it, by the way, in the political class, so to speak, of that town. I mean, it's always been the same faces for the past decades, same families. You know, sometimes you have the husband running, and then the next election is the wife. They all know each other, they've known each other since forever, and they kind of run and define local politics. That's how it is. But apparently the small secluded town is not that, although physically it is really cut off from the rest of Italy, or of you know, the surrounding network of cities, which doesn't help. But apparently they're not close enough not to vote for a complete stranger such as myself. I got 76 votes in total, which is a good number actually, enough to become a city councillor, considering that the person in our list who got most votes got 202, apart from the mayor. She got 202 votes, and she's a local personality. She's been very busy in the local community, very selflessly so deservedly she got elected based on that. But yeah, I mean, I can see now, the day after Trump's election, how they're analyzing the demographics, you know, of the vote, so to speak. I mean, they're trying to understand how the blacks vote, how the Latinos voted, you know, to explain who the voters are. But they're just numbers. Those are just statistics. They don't know them personally, which is which is the good side, I would say, in local elections. You can actually get to know who to vote for you, which is what I did in the weeks and months and a couple of years after the election. I managed to find out who my electors were, or at least a good number of them. And I realized that there were a few unlikely categories, namely 3 categories, which I'm going to examine now. Those 3 categories were immigrants, communists, and fascists. So 3 very unlikely, at least in part, categories of electors, and I'm going to explain and to analyze what motivated them. So let's go then, without further ado. You say ado, ado? I don't know. Let's see who those people were who voted for me in small town northern Italy. So first category of people who voted for me, like I said, were immigrants. And the reason they voted for me, I think, is quite simple. It's because they knew me. I used to live in an area of town which was populated by quite a few immigrants. And so naturally, the first semblance of a social life, I built it with them, with my immediate surroundings. And I got to know a few of them, North Africans, Albanians. There's a big community of Albanians historically in Italy. And there was a family I remember nearby who told me, "We're going to vote for you. We believe in you." Some Romanians as well. All in all, I estimate maybe 10 or 12, maybe 15 people from that area voted for me. Obviously, immigrants with Italian citizenship, so with the right to vote. And like I said, they did so because they knew me personally, which is, unfortunately, I would say, the natural reflex in those small towns. You know, people don't really vote for you because of your IDs, although I think my IDs at least were less hostile to them than the opposition. But yeah, the fact remains that they tend to vote you because they know you, and they did. And in doing so, by the way, they actually show that from that point of view, they're pretty much integrated with the local community. They react very much like the locals, you know, who consistently vote for their friends, for people they've known for all their life, for family members in some cases, especially in that town, because if you look at the political class it has produced over the years, over decades, you find pretty much the same faces, the same names, the same families that kind of run the country, run the town at least. And I suppose they saw me as a reference for their local community, and so they voted for me. So that's one first category of electors. A second category of people who voted for me, like I said, were communists. I'm talking old school communists, a group of boomer communists, so to speak, people in their 60s, 70s. There's even an 80-year-old who told me he voted for me. Not, not upper class, urban liberals, so to speak, but people from the lower middle class, workers, so bona fide communists, I would say, who surprisingly so voted for me. Surprisingly so because, let me be clear, I am not a communist. And I made that quite clear indeed during the campaign. I mean, I hold the left, or the far left, responsible for a number of ills from which Italy is suffering. And yet those people voted for me. I estimate that there are maybe 5 or 6 of them, and it's not such a big number, but it's still decisive, 76 people voted for me, like I said, and which is not a small number, by the way, in a small town like that, for a complete unknown. I mean, the person who got most votes, apart from the mayor, in our list, got 202 votes. And she's a very well-known figure in the community who's been working very intensively and very selflessly for that community for many years. So, yeah, 5 or 6 communists voting for me, I'll take them, But why? Why did they vote for me? Also considering that in our group there were other people who probably matched that profile better than I do. Well, it turned out that the reason they voted for me is because I came from China, And in their mind, apparently, China is still this socialist paradise, you know, this utopic country where communism has been realized, which it hasn't, you know. I mean, if you know a thing or two about today's China, you can say a lot of things, but not that it is communist. It is communist only in name. And if anything, it's more capitalistic than most of Europe, I would say, in many ways. It's also authoritarian. It's actually heading head-on into totalitarianism. But I digress. Those people thought I was one of them. I was a comrade coming from the promised land, the socialist paradise. Hence, they voted for me. There you go. Now for the third category of people who voted for me. I mean, there's several, but like I said, I'm going to stick to those three and try and make a point later. Try and understand what that teaches us. The third category of people who voted for me, like I said, were fascists. Well, I'm really talking about 2 or 3 people that I know of. Maybe there's others. But that's where it gets interesting, in my opinion. Because, as I said, we're talking about a town that is very much to the right or to the far right. And why would they vote for me? Because I'm not a communist and I'm definitely not a fascist either. Well, what happened here, I mean, how did I find out that they did actually vote for me? I found out a few months later, after the election, when I went to a bar with a friend of mine, and the bartender, who had never spoken to me before, came to me, probably recognizing me as an elected official, and told me, I voted for you. I voted for you, and we all did here. Be aware of this fact. Well, great. I said, that's good to hear. Why did you vote for me? Well, because you've come to my bar a few times in the past, and that's true. Before the election, I went there a couple of times. He said, you came here and you seem like an okay guy. And also I noticed that you knew your stuff. And by that he meant that I ordered a cocktail, a local version of a known cocktail, calling it by its rightful name. I mean, by the actual name, which apparently nobody uses anymore. So he appreciated that fact. I guess that made me sound like I was in touch with the local culture or something. And that's why he voted for me. But then we left the bar with my friend, who then told me, do you know who that guy is? Well, yeah, he's the bartender, and that's his associate there. And yeah, do you know what he stands for? He stands for fascism. He's a pure fascist. He said that guy is known to have a bust, you know, a head of Benito Mussolini next to his bed. He sleeps next to the stone head of Benito Mussolini. That is how fascist he is. And Yet, he voted for me. Again, with, I would say, the usual thought process, of people in small communities, in local towns who vote for the person, for the feeling that the person has given them on a personal basis rather than for their ideas. Even though I like to think that, that maybe he saw in me a potential young Mussolini or something. I mean, I don't like to think that, but I would like to think that there was at least something a bit more elaborate between in his decision, in that, Mussolini initially was a socialist, and maybe he saw me as the young Duce, as they call him, in the making, before he actually could express his potential fully and create fascism, and the rest is history. I don't know. It probably didn't go that way, but I like to think that this is what motivated him, something a bit original. But anyway, the reality is probably that since I provided some sort of financial benefits, should we say, because we're talking about a bar that doesn't seem to have many new clients, it's kind of always the usual faces. I guess what motivated him is the fact that I frequented his bar a few times and brought some fresh air, so to speak. But anyway, there you go. A fascist or two voted for me in small town Italy. Kritik am Tourismus. Something about tourism not going the way it should go. Whereas here, autista del bus salva copia dal branco. So we are in a bilingual area of Italy where both Germanic and Italian culture coexist, and so Italian and German are both official languages, and as a result you will have Italian and German news. And it's funny to see how the focus differs from one language to the other, from one community to the other. On that German newspaper, you're always going to have as a headline some news about politics, about some projects, some global news with a view, I don't know, that is of interest to the whole community. On the Italian newspaper, typically you will have crime news. I mean, that one was about some bus driver who avoided the beating at the hands of some hoodlums, and I don't know, it tells you something about their respective perspective. Anyway, so my electors then. My electors, you've had them now, those three categories at least of electors that I managed to identify. And I think it would be interesting now to understand what this teaches us. I mean, at least, I don't know, a conclusion or two that I drew from that. One positive conclusion, I guess, could be that, Italian politics is very polarized. I mean, I know this is a global trend, but Italy is a trendsetter in that regard. Trust me, Italy has been super polarized long before the rest of the world. I mean, we've had Berlusconi long before America had Trump, and we've had a communist party long before, I don't know, long before Bernie Sanders or Mélenchon in France or whoever your idea of a far left politician is. Indeed, the Communist Party in Italy has been the first party on the left for the whole Cold War period. It's a very interesting topic, actually, that deserves its own separate video. And it was the largest Communist Party in the West for that whole period. Oh, some graffitis here. That's unusual for this area. Anyway, Italy is very polarized, but as you can see, enter the Homo Novus, you're going to have both communists and fascists who will happily give them their vote. Trust him, apparently. The bad news is that I'm afraid that soon enough they will be disappointed by said candidate. I don't know if those guys were disappointed by my actions as a local city councillor, but they shouldn't have been, to be honest, because the thing is, I made it quite clear during the campaign, you know, I expressed myself against a number of things, both on the right and on the left, and I don't know. And eventually, I won because of that. By the way, I won because I made a brilliant campaign. But obviously, they didn't quite get it, you know. And so yeah, the lesson from that is that there are really a lot of lost votes in this representative democratic system of ours. Okay? I mean, Winston Churchill used to say that democracy is the worst system of them all, except all the others. And I agree with that. More graffitis here. Ooh. I agree with Winston Churchill, but surely we can do a bit better than that, you know? Never mind fraud, you know, election frauds as Trump has been claiming for years now or whatever. Many people just don't vote in an informed way, I'm afraid. And yeah, we could definitely do better than that. I mean, in the past, in Italy at least, you had the church. You still have a big influence from the church, but literally your local priest would tell you who to vote, you know, in those small communities in particular, which is bad. But at the same time, I have a feeling that people, quite an important number of people voted in a more informed way. I don't know, maybe I should look deeper into that. But really, I'm at a loss somewhat about this thing. What could we do, you know, to make democracy, to make voting at least more efficient? I had a few ideas, but I forgot now. So I'm just going to, I don't know, to ask you to share your input if you would like to. I'm definitely interested in hearing it. So that's it for today. And until next time then, take care. Bye bye.